Welcome back. This weekend, Democratic voters in South Carolina will cast their votes for the presidential primary. President Joe Biden is expected to win without question.
Meanwhile, the Michigan primary is set for February 27th with a lot on the line for both parties. President Biden was in Michigan yesterday speaking to the United Auto Workers Union, which endorsed the president, but it's unclear if he will get the member vote.
There's also opposition to the Biden administration's handling of the Israel-Hamas war, with some Arab voters saying that they will not vote for him. Here with us to continue that conversation, Republican consultant Jamie Roe and Democratic consultant Beverly Watts. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
So
Thanks for having me.
We're looking at the polling. We'll start with you, Beverly. What are you thinking about these numbers and what we're seeing so far?
Well, it's still early, and this is going to be a big test, like we said, in South Carolina coming up this weekend. Then the Michigan primary is on the heels of that. So we'll really see what the polling is and what our turnout will be. I think it's early now. I know the Democrats are engaged. I know President Biden is as well, and his team. So as the months come, as we're marching closer to this election, you will see more engagement, more outreach, more community involvement. So they're revving up. We're ready.
And from the Republican side, Jamie, almost 3/4 of Republicans said any conviction would be meant to damage Trump politically. What do you make of that?
I think it's true. I think the fact of the matter is that voters see through the lawfare that's been waged against Donald Trump since he left the presidency, and it's already been discounted. The fact of the matter is Biden and his allies in the Democrat Party thought that they could get rid of Trump through these indictments, and all it's done is make them stronger. Because one thing people really care about in this country is justice, and I don't think what they see happening in the prosecutions of President Trump, that they don't see it as justice.
One thing, if I can say on that point, and I agree with Jamie, everyone wants to see justice, but we also want to see a true leader that's for everyone. This is America, the United States, not anyone that's going to divide the country, to bring the country together. So yes, we want to see justice, but we want to see a unified fire as well.
Okay.
Unfortunately, President Biden has been anything but, since he's attacked half the country as MAGA extremists throughout his entire presidency. He has not been a unifier in any way, shape, or form. He's been a divider in chief and actually attacking the American people, which I think is unbecoming of any president.
Well, thankfully, he hasn't had any hats or any logos that said "Make America Great Again," and they won't identify what that means or really define "Make America Great Again." Is that inclusive or is that divisive?
And Biden getting that key endorsement, Beverly, by the UAW, does that mean now what it once meant?
I think so, especially coming off the heels of the negotiations and the big win for all the United workers last summer. Of course, no one, when you get a endorsement, you're not going to get 100% because it's still a democracy, right? But I think that is huge. UAW had a big win, stood up for themselves. They really energized other industries as well to get better pay for the middle class. I think that was a huge endorsement for President Biden. And I guess you'll see the majority of the UAW workers that will support the Democratic ticket.
And Jamie, we know that the president also got some backlash during that visit as well. We want to get your thoughts on that, and also the breaking news that we had at the top of the show about the president ordering those airstrikes in Iraq and Syria.
Well, I think as far as the airstrikes in Iraq and Syria go, the fact of the matter is our troops have been attacked more than 180 times since October 7th attack on Israel, and it's about time that we defend ourselves. So I'll actually congratulate them on that, and I hope that the attacks that they've launched are effective in stopping and deterring any further attacks on our forces overseas. As far as the president's issues with Arab Americans here in Michigan, in particular, I think he has got serious issues, and we saw it yesterday with the protests that were going on outside of the UAW. And quite honestly, I do not know how they fix that fissure, because the voters that they lose in that process are irreplaceable for him. Now, the question is, do they then turn out and vote for Donald Trump, or do they stay home, or do they vote for some third party? Any of the above are bad news for Joe Biden.
And Beverly, I want your take on that as well. What do you think? Can Biden win Michigan if he loses the Arab vote?
I think he can. I think that it would make the race closer, but But I definitely think he can still win Michigan without the vote. However, I agree with Jamie on that point, but I think the president and his administration need to start having those key dialogue with the Arab community. You know, he calls for the ceasefire, but you know, it's a bad war for any sitting president at this time, and any loss of lives on both sides. But definitely, I still think it'll make the margin a little closer, but I definitely think he can still win the state of Michigan. But any candidate, to be honest, if you're going to keep this state blue, you cannot do it without Wayne County and City Detroit.
Sure. There's a lot of concerns for a lot of people, Beverly, and as things kind of wind down, some people are expressing concerns as to whether or not President Biden will be able to take on former President Donald Trump should it come down to the two of them. How are you feeling about that?
I still feel the same, that he took them on in 2020. Of course, both of them are older than they were in 2020. It's not like the former president is that much younger than the current president. I mean, it was just a couple of weeks ago, I think last week, he still has this second misstep that he says President Obama. So you can ask and say, the former president, do you really know who you're running against potentially this year? It's Biden, not Obama.
And Jamie, one quick question before we wrap up. Trump lost Michigan in 2020, but he's leading in the polls now. What do you think brought about that change?
I think a number of things. Number one, I think that the economy and inflation have really hurt Michigan families and American families. I think the wide open, unfettered border that we have right now in this country does not sit well with the voters in this state or across the country. And the fact of the matter is, Bloomberg came out with polling recently in all 7 of the important swing states, and President Trump was leading in all 7. So I think that this election's shaping up well, and I think President Trump's up to the task to take the election to Joe Biden.
All right, Jamie Roe and Beverly Watts, thank you both for your insight. We appreciate it.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.